Welcome everyone to the first of this series. We're pretty excited to have a group of what's been dubbed the Rethink Retail Experts. So what we're going to be doing in this series, we're going to review the pulse of the ever-evolving retail landscape in Asia Pacific. We're going to run a couple of episodes. Each episode will feature Rethink Retail's top retail experts, which we'll introduce in a second, who will be sharing their insights on current trends, emerging technologies, and innovative strategies shaping the APAC market. We're going to go from e-commerce giants to brick-and-mortar transformations. This Rethink Retail APAC edition will keep viewers ahead of the curve, and I swear by the end of this series, I'll get it rethink before the word retail. So for those who don't know, my name's Ashley Hudson. I'm the CEO at Retail Global, and I'm really delighted to introduce my fellow experts. So I'm going to go around the screen here and introduce Jason Pallant from RMIT, who's been in the industry for quite a while. Jason, do you want to quickly introduce yourself and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Ash. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be part of the Rethink Retail experts list. So I'm a retail pracademic. So I spend most of my time currently at RMIT University doing peer-reviewed academic research on retail, consumer behavior, emerging technologies, teach some classes, but I also get the privilege of spending time out in industry working with brands, with consultancies, trying to put some things into practice, writing for some of our local trade magazines, judging the national awards, and all of that kind of good stuff.
Amazing. So quite clear why you're part of the group. And next on my screen, I've got Nick Cray from I Got You Consultancy. Nick, you've got probably one of the sexiest brand lists on your resume. So I'll let you introduce yourself and talk about that.
Sure. Thanks, mate. Pleasure to be here. Good to be with everybody. My background is 25 plus years across retail and wholesale, 8.5 years at Adidas, 10 years at Nike, 5.5 at Westfield. In that now into starting my own business with I Got You Consultancy, where we focus on brand and retail and really kind of look at not what the majority already know, but focus on what might take the majority some time to catch up on. We take a really emotional and personal approach to the work, so we put the consumer in the heart of everything that we do. And so far, it's been super exciting. So great to be a part of today.
Oh, amazing, mate. Next on my screen, I've got Rob Godwin from Future Ecom. Rob is one half of the Retail Romantics. He has a great history within retail. And also one thing I think which is quite exciting is Rob's running 12 marathons in 12 months, raising money for some great causes. So Rob, if you want to let everyone know about yourself, your journey, and how they can donate to the cause.
Thank you, Ash. Owner, founder of Future Ecom. We're an advisory company that helps retailers evolve forward. So I'm on the board of the National Retail Association as a co-CEO at the moment, and a board member, help steer them into the amalgamation with the Australian Retail Association, which is the first in history for retail associations. Team Global Express is probably my biggest client in bringing a new low emission delivery last mile solution. On the side of that, as you can see, Retail Romantics, the old Tay bracelets with my partner Olivia Carr. She's okay. She does okay in e-commerce. She's okay as well. Maybe one day she'll be my wife. Aside from that, decided to do 12 marathons in 12 months for Beyond Blue, mental health. Did an Alcott Foundation for disability students, Orange Sky Homeless, and Leukemia Foundation. So we are 8 marathons in, 5 more to go, and hopefully I'll survive till December and the latest move. So if you want to chip in, go to my cause and just Google running CEO, and we're up to about $6,000 with another $10,000 promised, and we'll hope to smash $25,000 in cash. That's me.
Amazing effort there, mate. And also brought Love Honey into the region as the former director or APAC director of Love Honey. Is that right?
Vibrators, yes. Yeah, still do a bit in the wellness world. Yes.
Amazing. And last but not least, we've got Laura Parr from Google, currently on mat leave with, I think you just said 3 under 3, which is a handful, but still keeping abreast of everything, and a former keynote speaker of Retail Fest, Retail Global's flagship show. So, Laura, do you want to give us a bit of a rundown?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ash, and lovely to be here with everyone. So I'm Laura Parr, work in strategy and insights at Google. So I've been in the role for about 6 years. I focus on retailers at the moment across Australia and New Zealand, and support e-commerce players, omni retailers, global marketplaces, and I effectively help them with their media strategy and planning across, and try and solve their business, marketing, and media objectives. So it's a great role, very, very exciting. Currently on mat leave, as you said, managing 3 under 3 and infant twins, identical twin boys, which is beautiful and a handful, keeping me very busy.
It's a good effort, I think, at this point. 3 under 3 and the twins is a keep your handful, make this seem a bit easier, no doubt. That's great. I think we've got a great representation of the industry from every facet here, and that's what excites me about this conversation. So let's jump in, and I'm going to throw out quite a broad question, but I think it's something with different perspectives will be exciting. I'll start with you, Jason, if you want to kick us off. But at the moment, so much is happening in retail. What's the current state, and how are retailers looking forward?
Yeah, I think the fascinating thing, and what keeps me busy, right, as a researcher and teacher in this space and trying to help brands navigate it, is we're still dealing with kind of some of the traditional stuff. There's still trying to figure out how to connect different channels, how to learn about customers, how to personalize stuff. All of those kind of things are still big challenges for retailers. Yet at the same time, particularly in our region, we're dealing with some new things, right? Cost of living pressures, issues with consumer confidence, right? We're trying to now all deal and figure out what we should do with AI, thanks to people like Laura and Google and some other kind of brands, right? And so I think I would summarize it as the state is complex, right? There's a lot of conversations going on about a lot of different things that can be pretty hard to keep up with, right? And so you've got retailers trying to figure out, well, what actually are the important conversations to be having? What really does matter, and what should we really, really be spending our time trying to do?
Yeah, I love that. I think what is the unknown seems to be the kind of biggest question at the moment. Laura, with the little segue there about Google and the AI, do you want to kick us off about what you think is how you see retailers moving forward in the current state?
Yeah, sure. And thanks, Jason, for the little AI shout out to Google, and look, which has been underpinning many of our products and strategies for a long time. But look, I really see at this point in time, in terms of the retail industry, really struggling with, I should say, from the consumer perspective, cost of living, right? And economic pressures and budget concerns. And as a result, we're just seeing more and more consideration from consumers than ever before. And most, a few of you on the line will know this, and the amount of research that consumers are doing. They're needing to pay more attention than ever when they're making purchases. There's way more consideration. We know about a third are spending more time making decisions, a third are doing more research on their purchases, and about half are making fewer impulse purchases. So more awareness, more research, more consideration, just to make sure that they're spending the money on the right things. And they're really concerned, obviously, and how they do that. So the challenge there for retailers is to, one, stand out, obviously differentiate, meet their needs in a really cost-effective and valuable way.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And those who are listening from the APAC region, I know we'll have a North American audience as well. For a bit of context, Australia's got our highest interest rate in 30 years, I believe, and inflation is one of an all-time high. So cost of living is real. We're seeing our dollar drop significantly. So those that are sourcing from in US dollars, the cost pressures are there. So I think one point you had there, Laura, about bringing retailers looking for different ways to stand out. It's a good segue for you, Nick. How are you seeing the current market? But also, side question: what are some of the fun ways that you're seeing retailers shift the narrative a little bit to try and stand out more?
Yeah, it's a really interesting time right now. I mean, look, fundamentally, retail's always tough, right? And it's either the landscape that changes or the consumer that is changing and evolving. So I think the thing that we've got to latch onto here is fundamentally the questions remain the same. It's the answers that continue to change, right, and evolve. So what I'm finding with the work that I'm doing is that the whole value proposition has changed. The lack of understanding path to purchase and how consumers are working and where they're at on their journey is making it quite challenging. So what we're finding is that we're kind of having to go backwards to go forward, if that makes sense. A lot of functional and transactional retailers right now that are feeling the pressures of the landscape and everything that's going on are almost pinballing in what they're doing. What can I add to my business? What can I improve? Do I need to, get a loyalty program or a rewards program to get or shorten that funnel to make purchase, right? And what we're finding is that your unfair advantage now is not so much doing loyalty programs and rewards as much as they encourage the decision to purchase. We're actually looking at how do you connect in a much better way. And what it comes back to are these almost fundamental and instinctual inherent requirements of human beings, and treating your business no different to a person, right? So understanding those values, beliefs, behaviors, so that you can actually resonate more than just a discount. The other thing we're seeing here is players like Temu coming in. And so it really says very clearly that if you're trying to buy customers with price, it's going to be a pretty short-lived exercise. And so that authenticity and meaningful connection is what is actually going to drive true loyalty, true allegiance to brands far beyond price, discount, incentives, right? And so a lot of the work that I'm doing right now is all around the true understanding of your business so that you can connect with that gut feeling like we do when we meet people that says, this is a brand that I trust, I'm in line with what they believe in, and I buy into the emotional default of that brand.
Yeah, you're definitely speaking to the preach of the choir here with that gut feeling. I think that's how most of our decisions are made with the gut, but also with a little bit of educated decision making on the side. Rob, from the perspective of the Retail Association, you're probably the one that's getting the biggest perspective at the moment from the retailers. How are you seeing the current state, and how are they looking forward?
I think if I take some of the comments about being interesting and challenging from the panel here, I replace that by it's bloody tough. Like, out there, retailers are getting squeezed with the cost of living. They're getting squeezed by the cost of doing business. When we did a survey recently of 6,000 retailers, their top three was the cost of energy, the cost of actually doing business, like their variable cost is exponentially growing far higher than their revenue base. But also the lack of confidence. And I think I gave an interview to the Australian the other day, and Inside Retail, in that the next 6 weeks are going to be the most critical 6 weeks in recent history, because if those interest rates do go up in that August or September time period, then this next quarter, where two-thirds of retailers make most of their cash during that October to December period, they're just not going to be making the cash, and it's going to be very, very tough headwinds. I had dinner with one of the government ministers in Canberra the other day, and not bigging it up, but just chatting to him and going, we need some help here. And it's on the top three things: cost of living, economy, and confidence are those big three things. So in a way, retailers stuck in this bit of limbo between the consumers as the retailers are trying to navigate these challenging times, and there's no confidence in the marketplace. They're really having to find new ways of connecting. And if, as Nick said, if you're going to start competing on price, there's these two Goliaths in the corner of Shein and Temu who are going to undercut you to the nth degree. And then on the other side, you've got the Amazons of the world. So I think the retailers are stuck in this kind of bit of waiting for confidence to come back into the marketplace. But at the same time, they're realizing they have to evolve. Like I did a webinar with Laura's good mate, John Ball, managing director of Google, on AI. And there is so much potential. 84% of the boards in Australia are talking about implementing AI to reduce annual costs, but only 4% are actually doing it well. So in this way, I think what we're faced with at the moment is a real flux of time versus confidence. So what do I spend time on? Do I do my loyalty programs? Do I discount heavily? Do I invest in my future in AI, in bringing down my cost base to therefore make more margin in our daily operations? So it's hairy out there and it's challenging, and that's where retailers and general businesses need guidance, as in, what do I do? They need an assistant to saying, right, do your loyalty, do some really good niche marketing, own your channel, but don't go after the Amazons and Temus and the Sheins of the world, because you're going to get chewed up, spat out, and you'll be left on the sidewalk, kind of thing. So it is a challenging environment.
And if I can draw on that, right, I think connecting some of those dots, we're talking about almost going back to basics. It sort of feels like I'm seeing more retailers and leaders talk about profitability more than they have for a while. And that kind of feels weird, right? Because like that should be where we start, right? If your business is not profitable, you've got a problem. But I think we as humans, right, we get shiny thing syndrome. And I think it's fair, like a lot of retailers did too. When confidence is high and consumers are spending, we kind of get excited about all sorts of different stuff. I think what this period is forcing us to do to all of those points really, right, is go back to what's the core value that we are providing to customers? How do we provide that better than anybody else? And then how do we do that profitably, right? And tech, data, AI can help us do that, but it's got to be the means to that end of having a really compelling value proposition that can be delivered profitably, right? And it's really interesting that I think we're going back to some of those kind of, business 101, right?
You're going to
profitability metrics.
You're going to find a fair few businesses will be going out of business out of operations in the next 3 to 6 months. A great person did a paper recently on the spending in cyber and Christmas. I think it was you, Jason, actually. And then, just about how we're relying on discounting, and how retailers have basically fucked it for themselves by just relying on, we'll do it 70% off, but they're not making the profit. They're not making their margin. They're just making revenue. So they're just chasing their ass for making money, not making profit. And I think this is where it goes back again. Yeah.
I was just going to say,
jump in, Laura.
Spot on with the profitability point. And at Google, we like to call it, and we talk about sustainable profitability, right? So it's not just making profit, but in a really sustainable way over the long term. So you're making sure that, the amount of money that you're spending on staffing, resourcing, marketing, rent, all your costs, it's sustainable relative to your revenue that's coming in. Because when we talked about this, I think I presented on the messy middle last year, it's that race to the bottom that retailers, are continually discounting. And it's going to impact the bottom line, of course. And to Jason's point, how can you focus on your value proposition? How can you ensure that you're connecting with consumers in a meaningful way and providing real value? And you can't compete with the Temus and the Sheins and even Amazon. They're really, really strong in their costs. And I'm just looking at something now, looking at all the Black Friday deals from last year, and 80% off, 90% off some things. Auto had 10% off cars. And it's just a significant amount of discounts that retailers can't compete in, or shouldn't, or there are other ways to compete, differentiate, and stand out in the market beyond price. So I think that's the real key point, is looking beyond price, looking beyond discounts, and seeing where else you can play in order to gain attention and secure that consumer.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also think, though, that the impact that it can have on your business, not just in the slippery slope to compete with these big boys that are in the marketplace now, but it actually changes your target market as well. Once you start discounting, now you're talking to a completely different audience that is valuing that. If I get this pot, I get all these pots and pans with it, to the customer that's give me the right pot and I'm prepared to spend what I need to in order to have it. And so once that kind of changes, then you're playing with fire, because you're implementing cognitive dissonance and confusion with your target market. I thought you were this, and now you're telling me you're that, and it's just it's a snowball effect. So it's not just, that discount doesn't have the impact that it once had. It's like, what is the impact that is that actually having to our business in the long term as well, right?
Kind of from these points, controversial question then, I guess. Did retailers put themselves in this position through, I guess, a false sense of security from what was dubbed revenge spending post-COVID, where we had those big highs and we saw the market booming, and then obviously we're in the position we're in now? Is that a reflection of not kind of taking the eyes off the ball, or is it you think it is a genuine sign of the market? I'll throw it to anyone who.
I can jump in here, because this is part of our research, right? Is looking at where did these things come from, where did they start, and what drove them. And essentially where we landed on that is this kind of a dual causality, or like a cycle, right? And so consumers started searching for stuff. So we think about Black Friday, right? Or the sales, consumers start searching for stuff earlier. So then brands start advertising it earlier in response to that trigger. But in doing that earlier, you are then training consumers to do it earlier again, right? So it's kind of this continual cycle. Same thing with discounts, right? Consumers got price sensitive, right? And then retailers gave them a discount, so they get more price sensitive. So we offer them a bigger discount. And so a lot of cases, I think it's kind of a dual cycle that we are feeding into. And this is where we start talking about things like race to the bottom, focusing on those top line metrics. Because if you're a retailer that's gone, we got X amount of sales, or we moved X units last year, and we want to beat that by X percent because we're on some kind of growth trajectory, what do? You have to offer more products on sale, and you have to offer a bigger sale, right? Because if you're trying to hit that metric for whatever reason, you've trained consumers to do it this way, so you kind of lock yourself into having to do it. So I think it's kind of both, right?
It's a great point, because one of the biggest success stories out of Australia is Culture Kings. But on that note, I know that if I'm looking for a new pair of trainers, every Friday at 6 p.m, I'm going to get a text message telling me there's 30% off Nikes and Jordans, because I've received that same text for probably 12 weeks now. So if I can look during the week, I know that that's my time to buy. So it's an interesting point there. I think there's touching on. Oh, sorry, Rob, you go.
No, I think there's a couple of points there. I think we became quite lazy as a retail industry after COVID, and we certainly overordered in the last couple of years, and therefore suddenly on the balance sheet you've got a whole heap of stock. And with the dilution of seasonality now, because again, the team using the Sheins of the world can make something and ship it to you in a week. Like, it's changing the parameters of the production cycles, etc. But we did get a bit overconfident that this massive spike during and post-COVID was going to continue into the distant future. We'll be happy and live off our beautiful yachts in the future. Well, that's come crashing down into reality, where people go, nah, actually, I'm going on holiday, I'm going to do other stuff. And then with the contraction of confidence in spending, now there's a realization that you have to go back to what Nick was saying and Laura before about, you've got to go back to your core value. What are you offering outside of discounting? And we became way too reliant on, we got extra stock, we'll just clear it and we'll offer it 70% off, but then you're not making the profit to put back into the business. So I blame the CFOs and I blame venture capital, really, because at the end of the day, what they're looking at, and I was guilty when I was at Love Honey, where we do a promotion and I'll be at night, 10 o'clock at night, watching the feed on our analytics to see how much traffic I'm getting in. And if it didn't work, I'm ringing up my guys at 10:30 going, it didn't work. We're meeting at 8 o'clock tomorrow. We're going to review. The retailers became, and business owners became so micro-focused. This is where we're to blame, because you've got to have a wider perspective. And this is where value comes back in. Don't be a Friday 30% off Jordans with Culture Kings. Mix it up, add in gift with purchase, add in, loyalty schemes, add in like VIP status, FOMO. Do more than just pure price all the time. But as a general economy, we're too focused on this week and this month rather than how we're going to do this year. And we're just micro focused on the here and the now, not in the long term, as Laura's saying. What is your sustainable profit going forward?
Yeah, and I also think that it's really interesting, isn't it? Because the game you were talking about, watching the analytics and stuff, I think that's really quite reactive, right? And as humans, we do this naturally. We go, what do I need to do? And it's a very outbound journey on reacting to getting things back on track or making things better. And we go for those easy levers and so forth when that's how we become transactional and functional retailers, when right now we are in our best place to be leaning into what makes us vital, or the vitality of our business, more so than transactional, right? Like if we look at Culture Kings, for example, yes, they're pushing the discounts and stuff. If it was my decision, I'd be saying, how do we bring that entertainment and that feeling into the business again that we are famous for, right? Because that's just going to drive this emotional connection. And as we know, we buy with emotion, we justify with logic later. So I would be leaning into, how do we bring that vitality into our business right now, as opposed to having to pull these levers to shorten the funnel.
And just to jump on that point regarding kind of that short-term thinking, Nick and Rob, to your points, I'd like to review, like, what's the strategy? What's the metrics? What are the KPIs? Like, what are we looking at? What are the incentives in the business as well, right? So if you've got monthly KPIs, well, you're going to be looking at your data monthly, daily even. How can we start to build a bit more of a longer term horizon and a more strategic view around the business and where you need to get to? Because if you're incentivizing for short-term wins, you're going to look short-term. And that's not always valuable when you're looking at the health and the growth of a business over the long term.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's one of the things I presented at Retail Fest was around how we use sell-through as the metric to determine whether a physical store is successful or not, when it's such an incomplete metric to use, right? It's like diagnosing your health by asking you what you had for lunch. It doesn't tell you the full picture. And the thing we know with physical retail is, yes, you can sell product there, but it is not a sales distribution strategy anymore. It is your most manageable, tangible, measurable marketing tool for customers. So it's about customer acquisition. It's about dwell time. It's putting a cost to the experience, whether it's positive or negative for a customer in store, and really getting a true understanding of the role of that physical space, not just can I sell product from it, but to be able to meet a customer regardless of where they're at. Is it the first time they've met you? Are they looking for inspiration, education, first or third time they've purchased? It's got to be more than just we're selling product from the store and measure it.
That might be one of the best analogies I've heard in a long time as well, Nick. It's straight to the point. I love it. We've got a couple minutes left, but quickly, I'd love to hear your thoughts on. We've been talking about profitability, race to the bottom, and with the people bringing the sales season earlier. What trends are we seeing for this holiday season that we're coming up into? And what, if you can give me one prediction of what you think we will see? I'll start with you, Jace, if you kick us off.
Yeah. Do you want the optimistic prediction of what I hope we see, or the pragmatic what history has shown us we will see?
Let's go both.
Both. So
the devil's advocate and real.
Yeah. So optimistically, right? I think this has now been multiple years in a row that we've been talking about, and we hear publicly, right? Businesses talk about how they understand that offering 70% site-wide sales is not profitable. They're training consumers to wait. They don't really want to do it. Yet then a few months later, those same businesses are doing exactly that, right? So there's been multiple years that we've kind of had this public discourse about questioning how do we make this profitable, and still a lot of businesses doing it. So the optimist in me says, I hope that businesses kind of are now really forced almost into this position of focusing on a value proposition, not a price proposition, right? So use the fact that people are searching and interesting and shopping during this period to attract attention, but do it through exclusive ranges, loyalty benefits, things that only existing members can access, whatever it might be, right? Something that adds value, is engaging and interesting, but is not a 70% site-wide discount, right? But pragmatically, I think, like, for all the reasons we've spoken about and the short-term myopic decision-making and the focus on revenue, we're still going to see a whole bunch of 70% site-wide discounts.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Last night, scrolling through Instagram, the amount of ads that popped up already at 80% off was quite incredible. Nick, did you want to add to that one?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because I think Christmas starts now, right? And even when you look at, I caught up with the brand space team from Westfield, and they have pretty much sold out their assets from a pop-up activations perspective already, locked them all in, which is a really good sign, right? It means that people are preparing to build physical activations during this Christmas time, and I think that's really great. There's either two things that are going to take place right now, and either it's those Instagram ads to, start trying to catch the decision making now, or you lean into building that connection and reassurance and build that rapport and community around your brand, so that you don't just have to lean on the option of discounting when you get to Christmas. And the reality is that I think it's something like 41% of all Christmas shopping is completed by November, right? And so we're moving into a place right now where it's all about considered purchases. And as you get closer to Christmas, end of November into December, it's a panic mode. It's the add-on mode. It's, I forgot to get Ash a Christmas present, so I've got to go and pick up something really quickly. And so now is the time to lean into that emotional connection that you're trying to build with your customers. And I'm super passionate about that, because I'm like, I can see all these retailers that are going to get to Christmas and go, we've got no other choice than to drive discount.
I think the point there of community is a great one, because you look at some brands that are doing it really well. I think the biggest example for me is LSKD in Australia. They've built this community around, there you go, we've got one there now, where it is about their mantra of 1% better every day. But they've built such a community where people are buying in. They're giving small discounts to the community group, early access for those followers, but they're not around building a discounted product. The product is quality and it is well priced, but they've been around building a loyal partner, not so much a customer. And the people are embedded in that community, that when their new release drops, it's not a matter of if I'm going to get it, it's when do I get it. And it's built that community around having that inclusivity in an industry that traditionally was very transactional around gym gear, but now it's turned from gym gear into casual wear, into athleisure, and it's built this almost lifestyle around the brand, which shows how you go about it in that sense really well.
I think the two things they do really well, right, is they go this way instead of that way, right? When we talk about those 1%ers, they're so valuable, certainly right now as a business, as we head into Christmas. If you deviate 1% on an airplane, you're going to end up in a very different location to where you were heading, right? And so now is the time to go this way and say, what are those 1% changes that we can make to improve our business? But the other thing is that, and LSKD do this really well, is they validate their ideas before they do them. So they're very close and connected to their community, so they can bounce this conversation back and forth around new initiatives, new ideas before doing any of them, to understand demand, to understand, is that actually going to connect? Is it something our audience will relate to, want, need? And so it's just a really smart business.
And one of the biggest things as well, we're not being paid by LSKD for the promotion, but it's a great example that they are a brand that's innovated over 14 years, where they were originally in motocross and then they found their niche as they grew along over 4 or 5 different iterations of the brand. and they didn't just stick to one thing. They kind of evolved as time came too, and they found the right model. So it's, although you might start off in one area, it is being adapting to that consumer demand and finding where your community is, which I think is really cool.
Actually, I would say
I'd love to hear from I'd love to hear from Laura. If there's,
Yes.
are you seeing anything different on searching, either from the consumer side or how retailers are actually preparing for the season? Because I think like you might have the best predictive ability of actually seeing, to the point people are starting to plan and advertise now. Like, is it changing? Please tell me it is.
And look, at Google, we don't have a crystal ball. We can't predict. All we can do is look at a number of different data sources, Google Trends, insights, research, and try and, triangulate and understand really what's happening. But yeah, you're right, spot on in terms of, we are seeing interest and searches earlier and earlier every single year, right? So all the money used to kind of fall in December. Now that's really shifted forward to November, and even starting earlier in October. We've got this great chart, and a pity I can't show it. I'm just looking at it now, and a bit of a shout out to my SIM team, Strategy and Insights, Ryan and Steph, who pulled this together, because it does illustrate searches for retail across every single year, and we just see it earlier and earlier, and many more and multiple peaks leading up to Black Friday. So it's happening earlier. And again, that's twofold. I think, Jason, to your point, is it a bit of the chicken and egg, right? Is it the retailer going out early with marketing and campaigns and promotions, or is it the consumer that's seeking them out? And we do see that in the data. It's a bit of both. So earlier, and we do this interesting chart where we look at the day retailers drop their discounts or the day they go live with Black Friday sales. And every single year it's just earlier and earlier. So what's also happening too is that these, of course, trends, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but we're also seeing it well beyond retail, right? And we call it peak spending is not reserved for retail. We see it across auto, we see it across flights, travel, telecommunications, education, training, health, well-being. And we're seeing these growth of really niche, unique moments or days. Like, for example, Travel Tuesday is a thing. And we're seeing a 700% increase in Travel Tuesday queries year on year, coming off a small base. But that's an example where people know there'll be good deals out. Hotels, flights, tours, and they're jumping in and kind of trying to get really good deals. So new moments are also playing out across the peak season. And again, it's not just deals, discounts to retail, it's across the whole sector. So I think what that means too is that there's more competition, as I mentioned before. It's going to be harder to stand out and harder to differentiate because it's just so much noise and clutter in the market. So what do you need to do as a retailer to stand out? And I think as a result of doing that, and again, not just focusing on discounts and that race to the bottom, that retailers will have to start playing a stronger role around branding, the value proposition more upper funnel. And we've already started to see that last year with some really great brand campaigns. And some brands are really using kind of Black Friday and this peak shopping moment as their Super Bowl moment, we call it. I don't know if you saw the Walmart ad with the Mean Girls Black Friday deal.
Yeah.
Brilliant, very high quality, great production. They've put a lot of money and time and effort into that spot, and that's a really strong brand play in this space leading up to Black Friday. So I think we're going to see more and more in the brand space, upper funnel. Of course, lower funnel, there'll always be discounts, deals, nonstop, but there is a lot of clutter. There is a lot of noise. How do you cut through that and really stand out and differentiate yourself? Because again, I'm just looking at data now from Google, from the ABS, retail spend, it's just up and up year on year. And peak season just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So my predictions are starting earlier. It's getting bigger. It's harder to stand out. And there'll be more in the brand space as opposed to just discounting and promotions.
Love that brand space. It's an exciting one.
Yeah.
I
I think it's interesting too, the ability for retailers right now to lean into AI, certainly from a buying perspective. And as they go into Christmas, it's almost like looking at that 20% that's going to bring you the 80% of profit, right, or return on investment. It's not kind of spreading your wings and trying to do more. It's honing that assortment and buying that will allow you the best results. And I always think creativity is going to be the winner in the end. It's, in my opinion, the thing that will beat AI, or it will be uncontested in retail. You know, AI is always going to be quite convergent thinking, and we have the ability to be divergent in thinking and the ability to understand nuances and trends that might take place and the slight points of difference with that trend that we can introduce into our business to create those points of difference. So it's an exciting time, and there will be some that will get it right.
I think
Rob, do you want to finish us out?
Yeah, I think I concur with what Laura and Nick just said there. I think that brand perspective on the positive side, I think in the rest of this year, establishing your brand and the average order frequency. We spend so much money in customer acquisition, but not necessarily in retaining the customer. It is about retention. And as Laura was saying about putting money into the brand, that it takes balls, because you've got to look longer term. So there is going to be, I would say, on a good side, people are investing in a brand like LSKD, and I am sponsored by them, I must say. They give me, and when they heard about my marathons, they sent me a whole gear and said, "You're running this stuff." Like, that's the kind of thing. I can afford, I've spent thousands with them for my boys because they love it. And they keep nicking my gear, so I have to keep buying new stuff. But they don't have to give me stuff. But they see what I'm doing, and they go, "Hey, that's the cool things." And you see, great businesses don't become great just by being, just being. They become great because they act great. They do things great. And that whole 1% better every day, there's 6 core values, putting stuff back into the community. Does it have an ROI? Absolutely not. But does it build your holistic brand? 100% all the time. So I think that brand value has to come in, like your customer service, like your returns policies, like just going the nth degree. I think the big trends going forward in a positive context are micro fulfillment, combining that omnichannel online, where you redesign your processes to fit the consumer to make it as easy for them. Walmart's a great example, where they'll deliver stock into your fridge if you want to in America, which is mad, really. God, they'll probably get eaten by my dog if they try to do that, coming to us. But that's the kind of level of customer experience, making it exceptional. I think also collabs, they're going to be a big thing. It's brilliant to see, like the Olympics, July luggage and Oraton. They just launched their, and kudos to the July team and Jenny from Oraton. That's cool. Great brand like Oraton. Some prestige there and some history with a great up and coming cool brand in July. And I think, but on the negative side, I think it's going to get ugly this year in pricing and those big international guys. I think some of the institutional, shall we say, distribution channels and those kind of things, they're going to start to be eroded down, and really a focus on putting the customer first every single time, and whatever you need to do in your logistics and in your customer acquisition and your customer journey. So I think it's going to be challenging. It's going to be, you're going to have to move fast and break shit, to quote Jason from LSKD again. And you got to just do whatever the consumer wants, but don't drop your pants. You know, maintain some dignity and put the time and energy into your brand, and that will sustain you through this difficult next 6 months. And then you come out the other side with customers that love you, not customers that are waiting for Friday afternoon at 30% off everything. And that's a longer term investment, really.
One of the biggest things for me that I don't think it's a prediction, but it's something that I'm hoping to see, is and this is kind of a frustration throughout the year, and then even worse in that holiday period is the communication on that last mile. I think is key, because a brand can have every bit of loyalty until they put the product in the truck and the e-commerce side of things. But once it's in the truck, it's in the hands of the courier. And if you're not communicating with there's delays or taking a little bit of ownership there, that's one thing that for me is, if someone wants a product the next day delivery, but it's going to be 3 days, it's getting in touch with them, letting them know that it's a delay. It's because retailers, we ordered some things for a couple of cutouts for a party we're running with Retail Global, and we got in the email that said, please note, we do not track post-delivery. If there is any delays, please contact your courier. Like that little bit of lack of ownership there. If it's delayed and it doesn't make any time for a party, I'm not going to use that supplier again. And it was completely out of their hands, but it was that lack of ownership there. But if it's saying, hey, let me get in touch with you, let me communicate with you, and having that ability to take the ownership also, like I said a few times, but owning that side of things, to send me an email saying, hey, we've noticed there's a delay, it might be there tomorrow. And it's not saying, hey, here's 10% off to say sorry. It's all I want to know is simply what's happening, and not having to click through 7 links to try and get the product, to get to where the product is. So I'm hoping this year we get it nailed down, and it's something so simple, because we saw the photos last holiday season. Australia Post had warehouses and warehouses of boxes. They could keep up with demand. So that's my wishful thinking for the season. So look, we're well and truly over time here. So we've got a few questions we didn't get to, but we'll get to the next episode. But I'm really excited for the next one. I think this has been incredible. I really appreciate you guys taking the time and effort to join me on this one. Laura, thank you for taking time during your mat leave as well. It's those insights where having that data-driven backing is always incredible. Nick, your creativity and authenticity side of things. Rob, just being yourself, and Jason, the Pracademic will always go down as one of the best titles I've heard in a while. So to the audience, if you do have any topics or questions that you do want us to focus on in particular, please feel free to email me at ashley@retailglobal.com. That's Ashley, Ley. So, and to the panel, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, team. That was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
Have
guys.
fun.
Awesome. Epic.